Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the dystopian world that the globalists are trying to force upon us and the world that they want. Now, this is a world where they can act arbitrarily, unilaterally, without reference to the law, regulations, statutes, constitutions, any sort of restraint or regulatory restraint of any kind. They want done away with, if it stays, then they want to be able to uniquely bypass it themselves, even though it may apply to the rest of us. An example of this could be, say, mask mandates for the masses, but not for the elites. But what would this world look like? I think we got a bit of a taste of it with the lockdowns, how arbitrary they were, and any questioning of it was considered to be sinful, if not criminal. But as far as day-to-day life goes, and how you would be controlled and what this dystopia could look like, we don't need to go much further. There are already little sort of areas of it inside Western society currently. Now, one area that stuck out was the child support alimony thing. So having a look at that area, what's happened is the agitators and the activists, or simply the people that operate in that area, they've managed to convince the lawmakers that the need to protect women and children, vulnerable people, as they would call, as the activists would call it, the need to protect those people, to make sure they're provided for, is so great, that the demand and the requirement is so great, so overpowering and all-encompassing, that they must have the power to act outside of the law, to act arbitrarily and unilaterally, and to do so without any sort of worthwhile burden of proof. They don't need to go to court to get court orders, or if they do, it's a rubber stamping process rather than an evidence process. A bit like when they were getting warrants to do the Trump, this Russia business with Trump. They went to a court, but didn't really have to produce evidence to prove that there was due cause or reasonable cause to ask for the warrant. And the same goes in this child support and alimony thing. And so when we look at that, and what got me onto this was, a little while ago, I saw an article in a magazine. It was a left-leaning magazine about how evil and wicked, the implication being straight white men uniquely, but how evil and wicked men were. They were falling behind on child support and alimony payments. And the simultaneous implication or claim was that they were all multi-gazillionaire, Maserati driving, waterfront mansion living men who just weren't paying their fair share. And by contrast, the woman that was married to these men was living in an absolute hovel, pretty much on the street, with 50 kids who were all sick and dying and ill from malnutrition and this and that. And this was all wrong because this goddamn multi-gazillionaire right-wing capitalist fascist Nazi was living high on the hog, while the ex-wife was on the street at the mercy of one assumes other straight white men. So now, of course, this is an absurd thing. The proportion of rich men who are A, divorced, and B, falling behind would be so small as to be irrelevant statistically. And even if it was, these women have got very, very wealthy settlements, very rich settlements from the divorce process itself. So the alimony and whatnot that comes afterwards would pale into insignificance next to the money they've already got from these rich guys. But for the most part, the average payer of child support or alimony, in fact, is not wealthy at all. It's below even the average income, so they're hardly rich men lining up and not paying. So that's an absolute fantasy. But the real issue here isn't that, or that people are allegedly falling behind. It's the arbitrary powers the alimony and child support people have. they don't have the same burden of proof. They don't even have to operate on balance of probability. They can administratively declare that you have the capacity to pay child support, or you have the capacity to pay more child support or alimony. So even though you can be, say you got injured and you couldn't go to work, for example, and you're not getting payment. Now, technically, they're only supposed to take alimony and child support from your earned income, but they can arbitrarily, without having to go to a court or prove anything or satisfy any legal requirement, they can arbitrarily say, we think you have the capacity to pay this. And whether you do or not is another matter. And there's all sorts of other things where they may think, well, his parents might have money, or his relatives might have money. So if we squeeze him hard enough, he'll go to them and they'll give him the money, and then so we can get that. So they deliberately put the squeeze on private citizens who've committed no crime and done nothing wrong, just simply to see if they can shake anything out. It's a shakedown. And they've got various ways of arbitrarily saying, well, we say you can make more money. We say you can get a job. We say that your injury isn't as bad as you claim it is. Now, again, they don't have to meet a standard of proof to do this. They can simply say it. And it doesn't matter if the woman who's receiving the alimony thing is actually in need of the money or in anything resembling desperate straits, and even the amount of money they would get from the guy wouldn't change that, were the straits to be desperate for the woman anyway. It's far more an issue to crush men. That's the issue. It's to crush and humiliate men seems to be at least as important as collecting any money. Now, the government position is, well, why should the government pay for these women and the children? The guy should pay, zip it or lose it, or and all these phrases that they use to suggest that the issue is irresponsible men. I mean, if you fix that, everything is fixed. I mean, again, another absurd activist proposition. But this is the rhetoric and the propaganda. We can even put that to one side for a moment and just look at the arbitrary powers these people have. So they can arbitrarily declare that for the last 12 months you could have paid more alimony or child support, or you could have paid. Again, all they need to do is assert it. Don't have to prove it. Now, they can therefore say, well, you should have paid another $5,000. They can backdate that by 12 months administratively. Don't have to go to court. Don't have to prove anything. Don't even have to tell you they're doing it, for goodness sakes. Then they can say, all right, well, now you're in arrears. You've now committed a crime because you're in arrears. You owe money, if you like, to the state. Therefore, they can fine you, and they can arbitrarily detain you, and they can arbitrarily garnish any pay or wages that you have, seize property, send people around to, repossess your motor vehicle or something. They can, any licenses you may have, including driver's licenses or anything like that, they can cancel those arbitrarily and unilaterally, again, without having to prove anything. So now my issue with that is that if they believe someone's fallen behind, then they can take the matter to court, an independent, impartial court, and they can prove it in a court of law. If that's what they truly believe and they've got evidence to support it, then they can do that. But they don't. They don't have any evidence because they have the power simply to assert and bypass the law, bypass the courts, bypass the Constitution. Because remember, they're harassing a private citizen who's committed no crime. I mean, that's if ever there's an issue with the Constitution, that must be it. But they can say, well, we have a higher moral purpose. We're protecting women and children. And we're allowed to do that. Are you saying you're against protecting women or children? You damn fascist, Nazi, misogynist, Hitler. So they've got the moral, the technical moral high ground at least. But the issue comes back to they don't have to go to court. They can just say you owe this money. We say that you are fit enough to earn a higher income, or your income could be higher. Therefore, we're going to say that you owe more. Because you haven't paid that, we therefore are going to fine you. We therefore now can treat you as a criminal. And if you cross state lines, then you become an uber criminal, and so on. So there's all these little micro escalations that happen administratively, that no one has to lift a finger. Once the trigger gets pulled on the initial process, then all these other things just happen automatically, and the escalation happens automatically. So if you're in arrears in your child support and you happen to own a firearm, for example, then you've committed another sort of misdemeanor crime, and it goes on to the point where you can be put in what's equivalent to the ancient debtor's prison until you or someone else pays the alleged debt. Now, you can take the matter to court. Any citizen can take this matter to court, but you have to unwind the entire process. So if the process is administrative, they don't have to take it to court, by the way. If the process is automatically escalated 5 steps along the line, you have to start at step 5 and work all the way back until you can deal with the original claim they've made, an assertion they've made, again, which is administrative, not legal. And you have to roll all that out, but you have to act legally. They can act administratively and immediately and arbitrarily and unilaterally, but you have to act legally. So technically, you've got your legal rights, but the reality is you don't have any rights. Your rights are almost minimal. Now, if you've got the staying power and you've got the financial resources and all that sort of stuff, then you can fight it. But the courts that listen to these things say, well, Billy Bob, if you've got enough money to fight this legally, you've got enough money to pay it all. So why don't you just pay it all and then it'll all go away? So that's what happens if Billy Bob tries to push back against this. The fact that his rights have been trampled on and bypassed and so on, don't care. Nobody cares. We're here to protect women and children, and you've got a problem with that, you damn fascist Nazi Hitler. So really, Billy Bob's got nowhere to go, and these arbitrary powers they have don't have to go to court. Fuck the Constitution. Don't have to worry about evidence. Don't have to prove anything. They can just assert it. Now, if we sort of can parallel this with say this new disinformation bureau and the power that these increasingly the globalists they've got to have this power if they're going to get the globalist project in place. They've just got to have it. The Constitution just gets in their way. The law gets in their way. Courts get in their way. That's why they want to stack the courts. The advent of the Trump presidency drove them insane because all the judges, the constitutional judges that President Trump appointed, including, of course, to the Supreme Court, it's driven the globalists insane. So they now have to find other ways of getting around the laws and the Constitution and evidence and that sort of thing. So this new what's her face, the Mary Poppins, whatever it is, she is going to, or she's been appointed, as I understand it, to this disinformation bureau. Can you imagine anything more dystopian? This disinformation bureau and the powers they need to just arbitrarily declare. Billy Bob he's complaining about mass peasant immigration. That's it. That's what we say. That is disinformation. Don't have to prove it. We don't have to go to court. We can say it is. We can assert it, and we can arrest Billy Bob. We can fine him. We can get him fired from his job. We can close his bank account. We can make sure his credit cards don't work anymore. We can do anything to Billy Bob to shut him up. There's not really a damn thing he can do in response. Or we can saddle him with some sort of a fine or something like that. Or we can go to some almost secret court that's politically stacked and get some decision against Billy Bob that he wouldn't even know about. And then that allows us to send the FBI, men with guns, to go and intimidate him and maybe slap him around or throw him in prison or something like that. So this is where, when we allow one, it doesn't matter, one, two, if we allow even one of these things to occur, this bypassing the law, the Constitution, and this arbitrary and all this sort of thing, if we allow that in any circumstances, be it in child support or alimony or anything at all, then we've opened the door to it spreading to other areas, which indeed I believe it is. And this is effectively the model, that the legal model where we can act administratively, arbitrarily, unilaterally, whenever the fuck we want. And we don't even have to tell you. And then we can come after you without you even knowing that we're coming after you, without your right to defend yourself or to see the evidence against you. That's the model that they want and they need. The globalists must have that model if they're going to get the globalist project in place. And they know that. And that's the path they're heading down. And that's the type of dystopia that I think we're looking forward to, unless we can push back against that. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.